the Archer and Pine podcast, featuring stories about Black artisans, designers, and creators.
And welcome to On the Mark. I'm your host, Marc Clarke. Our special guest today is a special person. She's an author. She's a creator. She's on our site, archerpine.com. I'm talking about Fatima Alexander. Fatima, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. I tell you what, I was reading the description of your book and it was so empowering and exciting. I can't wait to talk to you about the book. Your description says there are times in life when darkness and shame threaten to overcome us, and it seems impossible that a chain of negative situations could ever be broken. Fatima Alexander journeys through the horror of an abusive relationship, 20 years of depression, and a seemingly endless downward spiral. When it appears as though she's hit her bottom of her personal journey, she takes control. I love that. I love that. The faith of Hannah. So This is so exciting. And I tell you what, first of all, thank you for coming through and sharing with us.
Thank you. It's I tear up a little bit when I think about everything that I went through just to get to that point to actually write the book. You know, some things that I didn't share in the description was, you know, life was, got crazy. And then I lost my mom, and then I lost my niece. And then, the year after I lost my niece, my son was diagnosed with leukemia. And, I was doing it all alone with no help. And I had two sons, and I'm trying to raise them and give them everything they need. And I'm in a single-parent home trying to maintain it all. And, my son, they told me he was terminal, and, you're going through that whole emotional thing. And so finally I just said, I can't let this thing destroy me. My sons are watching me. They're watching how I respond to this situation, just like the other situations. And sadly, my son, he was diagnosed about 6 years ago. And sadly, I almost took my own life because it just became so overwhelming. And I was laying there, and something just kind of came over me and said, when you get through this, use your testimony to strengthen your brethren. And I laid there in the bed, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to be defeated. I'm not going to let this thing tear me down, and just kind of rebuilt from there and chronicled my journey for the faith of Hannah.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, Fatima, you are such a inspirational person for those people going through, because when we go through things, I think our first question becomes, why me? Why now? Why not so-and-so? What did I do wrong? All these things you have experienced firsthand on a high level. And so, let's talk about, let's go through the steps. So it seemed like it was an unending series of bad things that happened. So Fatima, when, before you're totally overcome, what is going through your head? At that, how do you not lose control? What was the moment where you were almost at your breaking point? And then what was the moment where you saw the light?
The moment when I was almost at my breaking point was when I was in a hospital room, and my son had no more veins, and his body was becoming toxic from the infection that was going through him. And I was standing there, and they said, Miss Alexander, if we can't find a vein, your son will be gone before tomorrow. And so I'm in the room alone and trying to, grasp that. And he's sitting there, and he's like looking at me for answers that I didn't have. And that was my breaking point. I had no one to call, because really no one really understood the pain that I felt. so trying to explain to everybody, because, oh, just pray, just pray. I'm like, look, I'm praying, but this is action time. I need somebody to just feed me with something so that I can, rejuvenate myself. And it just seemed like I wasn't getting it from anybody or anywhere around me. And it came to a place where I had to look within myself and see what I had inside of me to try to strengthen myself so that I could be able to go in there and handle the situation. And it just took me over because I just felt so helpless. But like I said, that was all within a span of itself. And probably the week later was the time where I almost took when I attempted to take my life, and then I laid there, and it was like a calm that came over me that said, this is not who you are. Look at where you came from. Look at all that you've gone through and survived, all of it, and you've made it. Every single time you dust yourself off and got back up again. And so from that moment, I took it and just fed off of that energy. And like anybody that I spoke to, I tried to make it a point to really just project, positivity and strength so that they can see that despite the obstacles, no matter what happens, you can get back up and start over again.
I love it. Fatima, let me ask you this, because my father-in-law is a unity minister, and a lot of times in his message, he talks about we look for God or our higher power. The mistake we make is we look on the outside when God is inside, and he's always there with you. As somebody who's been through hell and back, do you agree that we're looking for answers on the outside when the reality is the answer is in the inside?
I agree. The answer is he instilled it in us. From the beginning, he instilled it in us. And it's just up to us whether we want to go and search around for the answer, or we want to look and dig and grab what he already gave us in order to pull through this situation. It's not a surprise to him what we're going through, and I'm a true believer that we picked our own paths, and he knew it was coming. We knew it was coming, but it was kind of oblivious to us up until that point. And so as we get there, as we step toward each obstacle, we think we can't handle it. But then when we look back on it after we've made it through it, we're like, my gosh, what was I so stressed out about that for?
Now, Fatima, you shared with us the overwhelm moment. When did that light shine through? When did you say, oh, I think I got it. I think I understand.
Like I said, when I left the hospital that day, I just felt like a calm, like something opened up inside of me. And I came home and I just started writing and writing and writing and releasing and releasing. And when I went back and read what I wrote was the aha moment where you were like, wait a minute. It kind of just clicked, like, look at the ups and look at the downs, look at the ups. And I kept looking at them. And at that moment, I noticed that, I guess this is my journey. This is what I'm supposed to do. For some particular reason, this is what I'm supposed to do in order to get to the next level, in order to help somebody at the next phase. So instead of letting that be something overwhelming or make myself look like a victim to my circumstance, I looked at it as like a badge of honor because I made it, and I used that energy and that strength to keep empowering anybody I came into contact with. And from that moment, I've just always lived in a place of gratitude, because if not for that moment where he gave me that calm and that peace, I don't know where I'd be. I wouldn't be where I am today, and I'm very grateful. And I just always show that in everything that I do.
And Fatima, because I think the option, especially people who suffer from depression and people who are overwhelmed, the option of suicide it plays in a lot of people's minds. What
Mm-hmm.
what do you think people are seeking when they looking at suicide? Is it just the escape?
You know what? It's a place of hopelessness where you feel like you have no answers
Mm.
and you have no understanding of why you feel this bad. But a lot of it takes, a lot of us don't take the time to push through the pain. We're stuck in the pain. I admit I was stuck in the pain for many years, and I had to figure out what is it that's making me feel so bad. And upon like searching and searching and seeking, I realized through therapy, through talking with my mother, my minister, that I had been molested as a child and by my babysitter, and it was blocked out. So that I buried it so deeply that internally it depressed me, but I can never understand why. And once I started going through therapy and explaining to her some of the things that I felt, I was like, look, I have issues where I don't really like to be touched. I don't like this. I don't like that. And she said, I don't want to bring this up, but I think you may have been molested. I was like, oh, no, I would remember something like that. But I kept having flashes over the years. I just never knew what it was. But I think we are afraid of what is making us sad because we know that it's something heavy. But once we go and we look in and we dig deep and we handle that thing and don't let it have control over us, then we take control back over our lives. Go ahead.
I'm talking with author Fatima Alexander, The Faith of Hannah. I'm sorry. So go ahead. You were saying once you
take control over that thing that controls you, that makes you sad, then you can take control of your life. You'll no longer be in bondage to it. You'll no longer be ashamed of it. It won't grab you. And so when people bring it up, it won't be an issue. It'll be a non-issue in your life going forward. So when someone tries to take those things and throw it at you because it's a non-issue, you go, oh, okay, and keep it moving. But it's about like dealing with that thing, which is what the Faith of Hannah is all about. It starts chronicling my story, and I don't go into very deep detail because I'd be writing all day, but I do like a huge overview where it's more meat instead of flour, so that it kind of slams you all the way through. But in the back, it's like a workbook so that you can get deep inside the root of your issues so that you can look and see, hey, what is my problem? What is going on? How did I get here? Would I be in this place if it wasn't for this? But you have to be ready. You have to be ready to get raw with yourself so that you can heal yourself so that stuff of your past won't, take away your joy.
We're talking with author Fatima Alexander, and I can feel your energy. I can feel your positivity, your strength. And so, Fatima, for those who can't even imagine having this kind of strength, two questions. Number one, when you're going through it and you haven't figured it out and people are kind of using you or taking advantage of you, is there anything you could say that we can say to that person to snap them out, or is it a journey that they have to go through and there's not much you can do? That's the first question. And then secondly, did you ever imagine this Fatima when you were in the midst of your challenges?
Oh, gosh, no. But honestly, you can be there and you can support a person and you can listen to a person through that journey. But it's up to them to make the decision in their mind that they're ready to change. It's not anything that you can do. And if you're leading by example, like say a person comes to you and they're trying to give you advice and their stuff is all over the place, the person who's in that situation won't really take that other person seriously because they're not really leading by the example that they speak. So for you to just be a friend and just listen and just support while they go through it, to me, that's really just what I needed, somebody just to listen to me or give me a hug when I needed a hug. But it's not really helpful to give advice for things you really don't quite understand. So that person really just has to go through the journey until they get to that point where they have that awakening. And a lot of times they do, when they can just release and talk and get all of that off their chest. Honestly, I never would have imagined in a million years that I would be in the place that I am right now. You know, I feel like a completely different person than I was even 5 years ago. You know, it's just a place of, you know, clarity and peace and, you know, gratitude. And, you know, I just do everything I can just to make sure my sons feel that same thing too. So when they wake up each morning, they have that same gratitude. You know, my son, he was in hospice 5 times. And I told him, you know, you have to show gratitude to God for everything he did for us, you know, because that was a gift over and over again.
Well, I tell you what, he's got that same undying spirit that you have, and it's apparent. You can feel it through the podcast. I'm so excited about your book, The Faith of Hannah. It's available on archerpine.com. Check that out. Also available, your magazine, I Am Unashamed magazine. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
I Am Unashamed is kind of like a spinoff from The Faith of Hannah. I felt like, you know, here I was and all the things that I've endured. And a lot of times people try to make you feel guilty about the things that happened in your past. So what I Am Unashamed, is I found individuals with incredible stories, and they've all had, you know, just individual obstacles that were extreme, and some of them were health issues, some of them was, you know, incarceration, another person was ill, and there are a host of different things that each individual went through. But what I did was tell their story in a way where you can grow from it, you can learn from it, and you could see that regardless of where you are, you still have a chance. You still have a chance. It's never over until it's over. And if you just have that fight and that drive to get through it, then you can. So with these individuals within the magazine that I covered, each story is another story of power and strength. And, you know, I just felt blessed that they allowed me to be able to, you know, write their stories for them, because, you know, they didn't really know anything about me. And here I come, hey, you mind if I write the story for this project I'm working on? And, you know, each person who's read it said there's nothing out there like that. And, you know, they just felt so inspired, like they could do anything after reading some of the stories within.
I love it. Fatima Alexander is her name. Again, all of her products available on archerpine.com. Check it out. The Faith of Hannah available, and her magazine, I Am Unashamed magazine. Thank you for your time, Fatima. We wish you the very best, and thank you for inspiring us today.
Thank you. Thank you. It was amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about my story and the different things that I'm working on.
Fatima Alexander, Archer and Pine. Have a great one.
The Archer and Pine Podcast, talking about circulating the black dollar since 2016.